Hi, good afternoon. Here in Palm Springs is Valerie Milano with the Hollywood Times, and we have some amazing people from a wonderful film. And we're going to let them introduce themselves, and then we'll talk a lot about the film. Thank you so much. Go right ahead.
Thank you. My name's Gabrielle Rosson. I'm the writer, director, and producer of She Who Dared.
And I'm Katie Killourly. I'm playing Lois Weber, the lead actress, and I'm also a producer on this film.
Wonderful. Well, this is an eye-opening film about a movie pioneer whose work as a writer-director is largely unknown outside the movie industry, artfully done, and a beautiful film. And thank you guys for sharing it with us. I'm one of the lucky ones that got to see it before the film festival, and I'm just so excited about it. It's amazing. I just loved it, and thank you so much for being in Los Angeles.
That means so much to us.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are in Los Angeles for the Los Angeles International Film Festival, and where are you guys from?
So we both live in Massachusetts right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we also came to the American Film Market.
Yeah, because it's both going on at the same time, correct?
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
That's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Los Angeles is just filled with it. Well, this film has a lot of moving parts. It's a sprawling story with historical elements. It's a giant cast of characters. It's a broad range of emotions, and it's a period piece. It's a period piece to boot. You know, it just turned me on. It's what a challenge for a director. How difficult was it for you as a director to make all of these many parts come together to make this cohesive story?
It was definitely very hard. And Katie and I were just talking this morning about that moment when I finally finished the script, because the script itself took a lot of time and I was still writing it as we were filming. And so, you know, once that was finished, this huge weight fell off of me. I'm, dealing with this incredible real life person and trying to honor her and tell her story in a way that honors her legacy. So the pressure was really high. And of course, she just happened to have her career during a time period that for now, at this time for us, is very hard to do well. So, sourcing locations and props and everything, costumes, even makeup, looks, everything that went into how the film looks. It was a lot of pressure trying to capture the period, but also the subject matter.
You want to talk a little bit about it, Katie? Just playing, well, having her direct you and playing that part in that period piece.
Sure. I mean, it's kind of hard to talk about Gabby in general as a human because she's such a passionate soul. So for her to be directing me, it was kind of effortless. Definitely a collaboration. I would bounce ideas off of her. She would, execute or suggest other things. And so truly it was it's always a dream to work with Gabby. Especially someone that believes in you so much, our goal here was to make sure that we were, giving the audience an experience and bringing them into Lois's world, because she was such a remarkable human that, not many people in the industry truly know about. I mean, myself included. I've been doing theater since I was 15, and this woman right here is the reason why I even found out about her. And then it was like the more we researched about her, the more things we were, the more things resonated with us, and that resonated. We could, yeah. I mean, it just felt right that this opportunity came, and the films truly just blossomed overnight, I feel like.
It did. And I mean, honestly, to piggyback on that, directing her was fairly effortless because she cared so much about Lois Weber and doing justice to Lois Weber. So I think we both carried that heart and that passion for Lois into the project. So working together was really fun, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
100 years after Lois Weber, filmmaking still seems to be a male dominated enterprise. Are female filmmakers still battling many of the same barriers that Lois Weber encountered, do you think?
I mean, it's interesting. I think that from my research, because my film company, GR Films, has an internship program for women in film, specifically geared towards helping women obtain experience in what I like to call quote unquote positions of power. So writing, directing, producing. What a lot of people don't know, and what I discovered through my research, is that actually there are more women in film than men, but they do not occupy positions of power. So in positions of power, men outnumber women 4-1. And you can see this in very small ways. I mean, of course, if you did, research, you would discover that. But also in just looking at, like, say, the Academy Awards, for example, in less than 100 years, I think women have only been nominated 7 times. And of those 7 times, they've only won, I think, 3 times. And please forgive me, anyone, if I'm screwing up those numbers, but it's really small. And so, that's just a small example of where there is still some inequality. It's not that women aren't making films, it's that these films are not recognized. They are not given the same amount of marketing funding. They do not have the same platforms as so many of their male contemporaries. So there is still an issue. And yes, I think Lois did experience that as well. She has this famous quote where she says, "I got into the industry when it was so new that no one noticed that a woman was gaining a foothold." But of course, she lived during a time where women were marginalized. They couldn't own their own bank accounts. They couldn't own property in their own name. So the fact that she was a studio owning business owner in a time where that was so uncommon, it really does set her apart. And of course, she did get pushed out of the industry around the time that they transitioned into talking pictures, once again, by a very male-dominated industry. So, yeah, I think that unfortunately, what happened to Lois in the early 20s, when the studios conglomerated and sort of took over, bought up all the theaters, we are still living in I hate to say repercussions of that, but we are still living in that. I mean, that was only 100 years ago. It's not that long ago. So if we're going to make any changes, perhaps it's a good time. And it's important to sort of, one of the reasons why we want to tell this story so badly is we want people to know the history, so that then if they are going to push for change, they sort of understand why it's so important to make those changes.
I mean, this started because I was, unfortunately, I was mistreated on a set by a male director. And that's where this conversation came about. And Gabby was like, "Well, what's your dream role?" And, and I had said, "I'm dying to play a woman of history that changed the narrative." And she knew right away. She's like, "Have you heard of Lois Weber?" And that's kind of where this whole thing came about. And it was like the second I started learning about her, I was just obsessive about wanting to know more because of just how remarkable of a human she is. But yeah, I'd say it's still an issue. It's still an issue for us women.
Well, historical accuracy, as you said, always, doesn't excite audiences, but you had a wonderfully significant story to tell and a lot of very good actors telling it. How was this massive ensemble put together? How did you cast the 2 main roles, Lois and Philip Smalley?
That's a great question, and I appreciate it because it gives me the opportunity to shout out the incredible talent pool that we have in New England. I have done a lot of networking. I've been making films for the last 5 years in New England, and so I've met a lot of actors. And so the casting process was fairly easy. Katie actually helped me with the casting process.
Oh, really?
And, this whole project started because of a conversation we had. And so we did this together. We started casting. We conferred almost every step of the way. And we were just very fortunate that we already knew a lot of people. There was really only one part that I held auditions for, and that was the part of Jesse Lasky, who is the big producer. He's sort of the villain of our story. Rest in peace. We're not sure that he was the one who delivered the bad news, but he was working at Paramount at the time, so it's possible. And that part was really hard to cast. Everybody else I sort of knew, but that part I really needed to find strong talent for, and we did find that in Nick Wakely.
Yeah. And I would say, it was important for Gabby and I, because this was such a huge project that we were about to tackle. We really wanted to make sure we were working with people that believed in the story so much like her and I did. The passion needed to be there because it was just such a tremendous I mean, she was just one. I could go on and on about Lois, but that was most important to us, was making sure everyone's headspace was, this is a collaborative effort, and we're trying to show the amazing human that Lois was, and the passion needed to be there. So that was most important.
As important as the actors and sets are here to, any story, the soundtrack for your film is an amazing character in its own right. The choices in instrumentation and voicing of the parts by the orchestra added, authenticity to the score. How much input did you as the writer-director have in the finished musical composition?
That's such a great question. So I reached out to a very dear friend of mine, Ian Roshkin, who's a composer. He has composed and performed all over the world. And to be perfectly honest, I put my complete trust and faith in him and simply said, do your thing. And so he did. But I mean, there is that fear of like, well, maybe they'll give me music that's horrible. And then, how awkward would that be? So I'll be perfectly honest, I didn't have a lot of input, and I didn't need to give any, because what he wrote was so incredibly beautiful that I actually dropped to my knees and thanked God when I heard it.
I cried when she sent it to me, because it just whenever I hear the opening of the film, I still cry. It just touches my heart. He is just unreal.
I tell him all the time, your music lives in my head, because it does. And you're absolutely right. Music is so important to film. And so to create that mood and that atmosphere, and like you said, authenticity to the period. Ian understood the assignment, and we are beyond blessed that A, he agreed to do it. B, he did it. His turnaround time was really fast. And then we were very lucky enough that we were able to record an orchestra doing it at our last screening. So we did something very crazy, and we had a multimedia live performance of the score playing while the film played.
It was
it was next level.
Unbelievable. I think it was important for Gabby and I. We wanted to bring that to life at the premiere, because it was actually her idea. This theater in Brookline, Massachusetts, we went to see Alfred Hitchcock's The Lodger, and there was an actual composer there, and he was just coming up with it, as we're watching the film. And I was just so taken back by that. I never experienced that before. So when we were discussing the premiere, we had a discussion about that, like how amazing would it be to bring that back to life, so people experiencing Lois could experience the silent film experience with an actual composer. So it was just to have a 15-piece orchestra. It was unbelievable.
And for anybody who doesn't know, I mean, prior to sound, technology with them being able to sync sound to film, that's how music was done for films. It was a live performance. So so we went really like meta with this first screening, but it was a 2-for-1, because we also needed to record the score anyway. in order to get it into the film. So yeah.
What a way to do it. Oh my goodness. How exciting. Wonderful. Okay. Do you yourself see yourself as Lois Weber and her passion for telling real stories?
I think we both relate to Lois a bit. I won't speak for Katie. For myself personally, yeah, it's, without sounding like really weird and kooky and, self-absorbed, I do feel like I'm a lot like Lois, because Lois wore lots of hats on her production. She wrote, she directed, she acted, she produced, she sometimes did production design, she sat in on the editing. And I do all of those things. So I do feel like I was the right person to tell the story because I truly understand her. Part of it is just being sort of a control freak. The other part of it is like really being passionate about the stories you want to tell and making sure that they come out right. And I'm obsessed with human behavior. So, and I think she was too. So yeah, I do relate to
Gabby was she's the type of director there every single step of the way. Even if she's trying to like, oh yes, the costume, I'll hand it off to the costume designer. She's really not fully handing it off. She's looking it over. Yeah, because that's how much you care.
Again, it could be seen as controlling, but
no, I think it's your passion. It's your vision.
Trying to get the vision out. Yeah. Well, and I think that was a struggle for Lois later in the process as filmmaking became this sort of institutionalized thing. No, she didn't have control over every aspect anymore. And I don't think that sat well with her. No. But you relate to her for very different reasons.
I do. The fact she started out in theater. Well, first of all, she did missionary work early on in her life. I'm such a woman of faith, so I really connected with that first and foremost. And then the fact she started out in theater and found her voice in the theater, that's truly where I found my voice. I used to be such a shy kid growing up, and theater brought me out of my shell and made me a better human. So, to relate to that, and then her just, oh my gosh, if you read about her, and there's truly not that much to read about, but when you do, it's hard not to be inspired by her because she was such a passionate person. She truly wanted her art to change people's perspective. She wanted to utilize it as sermons for people, and just change the world for the better with her art. And to me, that's all if I pick up a script, that's what I'm doing. If it doesn't speak to me and I don't feel like I can bring it to life, I don't typically, I'll hand that back, but I have to have that thing. And I feel like Lois had it all the time, what I would do to just sit down and be able to have an actual conversation with her, which, obviously impossible, but yeah. So we relate on many different levels, but different things.
Lovely film. Thank you. Do you want to say anything more about the film before we start closing out?
I would just like to say that her story is a story that needs to be told. It needs to be heard. It needs to be received. We need eyes on this. And the thing that is very Lois about this Lois Weber film is that there is a message behind it. It's not a film, it's a movement. And I have said this time and time again, but women don't need to ask for a seat at the table that they helped build. And part of the reason that there is this issue of inequality in the industry, I think, is because people don't know their history. They don't know that women were there in the beginning. And so I think if they were to know that, I think they would have a very different approach to asking for these roles and
believing in themselves.
Believing in themselves.
Yeah.
100%. So it is really important that everyone know that there was a time in Hollywood where gender inequality was not like it is today. There were a lot of women behind the scenes writing the screenplays, directing. Lois wasn't the only director. It's not like she wasn't an anomaly. She was probably the most famous, but there were lots of women in Hollywood. And so
she had the guts.
It's time to correct the historical records and put those stories in there. And we've seen this from animation to astronauts. We've seen how the contributions of women sort of don't get the exposure that they should. So we hope that this film will reach people and change that for people. change the
Yeah, it was
perception.
interesting at the beginning when she was typing and she told her husband, you know, I got to finish writing it for you. Right. Okay. Thank
Yeah.
y'all so much for the time that you took, because I
Thank
know
you.
you're so busy between these two events going on in Los Angeles. And my goodness, I'm just so proud to know you, to meet you, and to see you the other
Likewise.
night at the
Thank
opening
you.
event.
Same here.
For
For having us. Yes.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much
so
again.
much.
All right. Oh, one more thing before we go. How can we find you? How can our audience, our readers find you, the film, social media, website, what?
So
Gabby?
my film partner is New Path Productions. So you can go on Facebook to either New Path Productions or GR Films, my film company, and you can get all the updates you could ever want on either one of those pages. And we're also on Instagram at She Who Dared.
Great. Katie, come on. We haven't forgot
You
about you
can
yet.
find me if you choose to follow me, Katie Killourly on Facebook, Katie Killourly on Instagram. I'm on TikTok, but I have only one TikTok, so maybe try not there. Don't go there.
You
But
did
yeah.
an amazing job portraying. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for your talent.
Oh, thank you so much. That means the world to me.
For
Thank
real.
you. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. As long as, you know, you feel like you were brought into her world, that was our
No doubt.
goal, you know.
No doubt about it. Well, we're the Hollywood Times today, and our YouTube is the Hollywood Times official. The Hollywood Times official, and thank you for taking so much time today. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just keep going with your creativity. I can't wait to see more.
Thank you. And I will say this. This is all for Lois.
For Lois.
For Lois. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.